Welcome to episode 2. In this episode, we're going to be talking about IQ tests. Specifically, I can't remember the name of the actual IQ test.
The Wechsler's Adult Intelligence Scale.
Wechsler's Adult Intelligence Scale. That was Jane. She is a clinical psych
Student
in training. And again, on our panel, on our group chat today is Erin.
Hello everybody.
I'm sure you haven't had enough of us already, so we're back. Erin will be corralling us from tangenting a lot, because we did that in the first episode. I think too much, but it was just an introduction.
So I thought it would be interesting to do this episode on this IQ test because a couple of weeks ago, Jane needed some guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Do you want to just
get into how I ended
talk
up
quickly about that, or?
So essentially, during my master's, I needed some subjects to kind of run the Wechsler's intelligence test and to kind of find out what the IQs were. I mean, it wasn't for essentially on looking for the IQ, but it was just to kind of administer the test and be familiar with how the test actually is.
I love tests. We're gonna do a personality one soon. Not exactly sure when that's gonna be, but you're gonna find it. I immediately went, yes, test me. I want to find out if I'm dumb or not. And Jane pretty much went, no, it's not. I'm not gonna tell you whether you're stupid. This is not a Bodo scale. Bodo means stupid in Malay. If I'm not mistaken, it follows a bell curve and it's very American-centric. And by America,
Yes.
I mean North America.
So yeah, we will get into that towards the end of the episode, I think.
Yep.
Where maybe Jane can talk a little bit about the criticisms of the IQ test.
Oh, we have a lot.
Are we going to jump straight into the tea?
Oh my god, the tea. We'll have like a fire hose worth of tea to spill. Aside from that, I think each of us took about, I wouldn't say 2 whole hours to complete.
It was pretty long.
It was a grueling process.
Yeah.
When I did the test, herein lies the problem with testing your friends. Your friends interrupt you, and by your friends, I mean me. And by you, I mean Jane. I think from what I remember Jane saying, I was the more verbose one, whereas Erin was very succinct in her
I just
answers.
wanted to answer the questions.
It was very obvious that you were, but it helped a lot in the process. It was fun because our lecturer did mention that when you actually have, as we call them, typicals, they would try to finish everything, which is what, and 2 hours is usually, you actually don't need 2 hours to apply a WISE on somebody who has brain damage or somebody who's going through Alzheimer's. It takes much shorter time because a lot of the times they can't finish the items on the scale because usually each item has, maybe after 4 rounds and they don't score anything, you just move on.
Oh.
So it's usually the typicals that take up like the full round because you'll see them kind of scrunched up their face like, I want to finish this. Whereas the people who actually are struggling to do it would just be like, none of this makes sense to me. And so you can just kind of move on from there.
I feel like you did that with me at the blocks.
Wait, what?
Not going into specifics, we're gonna try and vaguely talk about the questions without actually talking about the questions.
Yeah. We don't want to spoil you in case
Yeah.
you're thinking of doing the test. But I think it would be an interesting introduction to the test, especially if you've only done these kind of online IQ tests, which are
definitely.
They're very, very skewed to make yourself feel better
not
most
obviously.
of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
I scored 153 on one
yeah,
of them.
I had some really high stuff. I don't remember because some of them, the bell curve said I was on the smarter end. Of course, it's an ego boost to me, but then, people on the internet are very diverse in their intelligences, which brings me to how they scale those intelligences.
Yeah, so we have, maybe Jane, you can introduce the structure of the IQ test. So I thought it would be interesting because Shah here is, like we talked about earlier in the last episode, she's a graphic designer. And I am somebody from a STEM background, an economist. So I think that also might be how we answered the questions very differently as well.
Yeah, because I'm more an abstract thinker, whereas somebody from a STEM background would be like logic, math. Answer question.
Actually,
No?
no. I mean, I have done the basic calculations for the results. unfortunately I didn't bring them.
No, it's okay. It's
But
okay. We're not gonna tell you because I don't want to tell the world that I'm stubborn.
it doesn't work that way. It was actually pretty interesting because it does fall in it, because at one point we have to look at the strengths and weaknesses of a person, and we don't mean weaknesses as in like, oh no, you're never going to be able to do great with this. It's just that, okay, maybe if you do more practices for those types of intelligences, you can actually boost it up. So it shows, like, from what you guys do and what you guys said you guys were good at, it reflected on the test. So I was like, because when you're doing the results, it's just numbers. It's like scores, number, translate. And as I was doing each one of you, I was like, this looks like Aaron's scores, and this one looks like Shah's.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it did reflect.
Yeah.
So and then maybe as you, Jane, as you go through the structure of the test, we can maybe talk about each bit very briefly and say whether, how we felt about it.
And go through it. I know what my ultimate problem is, but I'll tell you later after we go through the structure.
Okay, can we maybe talk about like our general feeling about the test first of all, like very very generally, like you said you had a lot of fun.
I had tons of fun because in general, as a person, I love tests. I might not like the answers for the test, but I like that it occupies time and it gives me something to do because I need to constantly be doing something. I'm the kind of person who goes on YouTube and binge watches how to make things, how to learn things, geography now, how things work, and I will watch things at 2 times the speed. So giving me something to do will pretty much make me happy because I'm absorbing something. I'm a sponge that never grew up. But what I didn't like though, and this is my personal failing, would be the want to remember things, because we're so technologically advanced now that we don't feel the need to memorize things. And short-term memory for me is quite fallible in that I had problems repeating to a certain degree. Like small numbers can, longer threads, longer chains. Oh no. Oh, cry.
Yeah, I mean, there was one point Jane was just sitting there just reading out numbers and letters to me, and I'm just staring at her like, no, stop. And she's going and going, and I'm like...
No, it starts off with like 3 things. I think the worst one for me was putting everything in order. So she would say a bunch of letter and number salads, and I say salad in the most liberal of forms. I mean salad, and this salad has meat in it. Why? She would just spew out a bunch of things that looked like pin numbers, and then I had to arrange it.
In your head. You can't write this down. You
have to do it, everything in your head. So when somebody says, you're going to do a test, I'm like, okay, what do I prepare? Do I bring pencils, paper, pen? Do you want 2B, HB, blue pen, black pen?
No.
5.5, 1.0, 0.7, which one? You're like, you're using your brain. I'm using my what?
I saw the moment of panic the minute I said that you were like, you were fiddling with a piece of paper, so I'm going to use this later? No, you're not.
The weirdest one was, okay, fold this paper in half. Oh, okay. Now put it on the floor. What?
That's actually not part of the intelligence test though, because every time we do an intake interview, we usually run something called a mini mental status examination, and that's a really, really short version of it. So a mini mental status examination kind of looks at a person's behavior, appearance, their awareness, their perceptual abilities. So it's very basic things, and you'd think it wouldn't be something that's easily like... It wouldn't be hard, but that's because we're typicals. But for people who actually, and a lot of the times, I'm going to refer to people with brain damage or people who have mental disability. It shows with certain things. They find even a simple task of folding something may be hard for them, or even their left and rights could be different. And so simple tasks like maybe ask you to spell a certain word, and they wouldn't be able to do that, and it indicates certain things and certain processes within their brain that may or may not be functioning well at the moment.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because it was that bit in the beginning where you were just making us do, or like me, I don't know, Shah.
It's like, what? Where is this going?
I have a queue of at least 5 now. I think
it's like I can do this. Yes. Put this on top of this. Okay. And then I feel like it's a very slow burn drama. Like
It is.
What is
it
the
is.
point?
Yeah, so yeah, it was good to hear what that was about.
Yeah, because not everyone can do it, and it'd be the simplest things you'd think, because it covers instruction taking, asking you where you are, who you're with, how'd you come here. This is basic information that we're just like, oh, yeah, of course I know this.
I think I remember the where you are question, and I had to clarify with you, like, what do you mean? Like, like in a room on a chair? Or, like,
but that matters. That actually does matter, because you could ask, if I asked you right now where you were, you could tell me, I'm in the middle of Switzerland, it's freaking cold. And so these are the things that we as clinicians have to jot down, and we have to do it with an entire straight face. Because we can't just be like giving them the, what on earth? Because we don't want to indicate and freak out the clients as well that there's something definitely wrong with you. No, we just are trying to gauge where you are and kind of where your mind is and where your state is at the point in time.
See, I had to temper myself a lot, because as a person, I will make fun of things. Like, if somebody goes, where are you now? Like, okay, Malaysians have this thing where we see a friend in a restaurant eating food, and we go up to them and we're like, hey man, what are you doing here? And then I'm the kind of person who, instead of like continuing shoveling food in my mouth and going, I'm eating, do you want to join? I'll be like, I'm hunting elephants, just with that face. But if you write it down, you're like, Shah said I'm hunting elephants. From a psychiatric point of view, you're like, she is delusional.
Jane, meanwhile, was giving you this face. Okay. Nodding. Yes.
Which is a problem, because she can't, because she's my friend, so it's automatically biased.
But to be fair, I mean, there is clinical judgment in it. If you were a total stranger and you did say that, the clinician would also have to look at your general being, your facial reaction to it, because we can tell when sarcasm is being made. So like, you can kind of tell from that face where you're just like, do you think I'm dumb? And so the clinician can actually verify, like, okay, I understand this is what's happening. However, so we're allowed to rephrase the question and to kind of get a straight answer out of the client, actually.
But there's fun sarcasm, and then there's sarcasm that's like just really punching you down. You're like, clearly has narcissism.
No, we're not allowed to make judgments.
It's an IQ test? Not
Actually, it happens all around. Like, throughout the IQ test, we're also making little notes about how you guys are actually reacting through the whole test. I remember during the arithmetic segment of it, each one of you had different ways of calculating. Like, some of you would move your hands just to kind of like visualize the numbers, and that's fine. You're not allowed paper, but you can use whatever strategy you have on hand. Whereas Erin's was more of like putting the hands together, kind of looking down and just kind of thinking, because she visualized the numbers in her head.
Hear me, the gods of math. Show me the light of the answers.
And so we jot down these little things because it shows your thought process. For some people, I was told while sharing with my other friends, some people actually moved. They found it easier for them to visualize numbers by moving themselves forward and backward, which is actually a very interesting thing to note down during the behavior observation segment.
Oh, moving around.
You're allowed to do things, but anything you do is being, in a way, scrutinized, which I have criticism later. But it tells a lot.
Can I ask, how is that related to IQ? Like, how is noting down the behavior related to the IQ test?
The IQ test isn't solely for IQ. We are looking at the basic intelligence, but a lot of times intelligence is misunderstood as how smart you are. The intelligence test actually looks at how your brain processes information, and sometimes while we're running a WISE, or as the intelligence test, we're also trying to pick up if there's anything else about your demeanor that gives off irregularities, I guess. A good way of putting it would be, during these tests, they're long, they're stringent, they can be a little bit stressful for some, especially if you struggle with certain things. So we're looking for these pointers, which is essentially what is being done in like major tests like SAT, STPM in Malaysia. They're putting people through high stress situations to see how we react. It's just that during tests, sometimes they don't take in the whole behavior aspect of it. But that's essentially what we do. We clinicians are constantly observing the person as a whole, just in case for anything.
Do you think this is used within companies, right? Large companies?
Ooh, I'm not that familiar, not wise from what I know. A lot of times with bigger companies, they don't apply intelligence tests because it doesn't really mean anything. They often use personality tests, which, you know...
it's another topic by itself.
Because
Fun, but
yes, it is
problematic.
Yes. But intelligence test doesn't reflect what you think it's going to reflect. Because what's the point of finding out a person has a profound IQ? There really is no connotation to that.
It's a badge of honor. I'm so smart.
I think that would be one of the most insufferable things to do. But you do it to your friends anyway. Like, hey guys, guess what? I'm smart. Oh my god!
A lot of times, IQ tests are mainly used to... I don't really like the term diagnose, but diagnose is usually the word for people with, and the term is still occasionally used, mental retardation, or people of lower IQ, or maybe learning development issues. It's used for a wide range of things, but mostly for clinical reasons. This is why we don't really apply it onto the general population, because the general population has a tendency of glorifying a number that really doesn't reflect the original purpose of it.
Just FYI, Asians.
I
I say that, but really, isn't America really, really obsessed with SAT scores? And GPAs? Like, everybody's talking about a 4.0,
I have no
average.
idea what a 4.0 even means.
It means you're really, really
like
really
A plus,
good.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like A plus plus, like A star.
It means Dean's List, essentially.
Dean's List, yeah. And I find that if you bury yourself into looking for the highest score possible without going through the whole social process of being in university, you're missing out.
Yep.
With our affliction and obsession with high numbers, yeah, I totally get what you mean in that you don't want the general populace to be able to do these tests for a while because it gives them a reason to maybe ostracize people with a lower IQ, for example.
And it has been happening. Like, people who score low, oh no, and God bless, I don't really like using this word, but you're a retard. It's really mean. It's really mean. It doesn't, and even the scale, the bell curve actually uses like some terms I don't.
Isn't that word in there? Like,
yeah, it is.
The severe mental retardation is at the lower end of the bell curve.
Yeah.
What's at the higher end?
Superior.
Superior, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And like even the ideas that are attached to those words.
Yeah.
And so you just think you're better than other people, and I don't think it really should be like that. Whereas the people who are under the lower scale should just be the people who need like support. That's just it.
The people who just view things in a different way.
Definitely. The Y specifically kind of it's for adults. So it says Wechsler's Adult Intelligence Scale. There's actually a few Wechsler's tests. There is a Wechsler's Intelligence Scale for Children. That's the WISC. And there is something called a WNV, which is Wechsler's Nonverbal. So it's a totally nonverbal test. There's no instructions. I find it very confusing because throughout the whole thing, it's mostly silent and you're just showing the instructions that are already printed out for you, and you just sweep your hand across the pictorials and you're just like, do.
That is weird.
It is weird.
Go through that.
No, it's so weird.
Why would you administer the WNV?
It's usually used with children, but it's also used with people who can't hear.
Right.
Yeah, so it depends. A lot of times WMV is applied on children.
And why is that? Like, instead of the children's one?
Not every child has the ability to hear or to speak or to understand language the same way we do.
Mm-hmm.
I would say information and learning and receiving information is a brain process that some people have and some people may not have developed throughout the ages. And so we kind of do a quick assessment of a child or of a person, and we just kind of like, okay, maybe this one would be easier for them. The important part of it is we're not trying to stress the people out. Although it is one part of the thing, but if we definitely know that the child is not comfortable speaking or has trouble receiving certain informations, it's easier to show them that instead of just bombarding them with words and be like, can you show me this, and that, and the kid's just gonna be like,
I'm done now. Give me marshmallow.
Internal screaming.
Yeah, but the nonverbal has its flaws as well. It's very dry, very tedious, and I still don't understand how they can administer it to children very rigidly.
When it comes to silence, kids are not silent. They need to move. They're constantly moving. They're constantly talking. They're constantly experiencing things. When things are silent, you're effectively telling them this is a very austere moment. And most kids don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because austerity is something that you learn. As you get older, you start to feel, okay, there are rules and regulations to this. So what are the age brackets for the kids one?
Until 18.
If it was administered to, say, someone who's 14 and above, I can understand the silence.
Yeah.
But anything below that, I feel they're going to get fidgety.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them can acquire anxiety really quickly. Just that feeling of nothingness, emptiness.
And we're not really allowed to praise, because by praising, we're also encouraging, like, it's a cue that, oh, you've done great. But as someone who has worked with children before, and I don't know, I guess because I don't have enough experience working as a clinical psychologist, I worked before with special needs children. Praise really works with them. It doesn't matter whether they got the answer right or wrong. You just kind of just be really great with them. Just be like, yeah, keep going. And they need that. A friend of mine actually administered the WMV on a special needs child, and the child freaked out. He was very much stressed out that this person is no longer communicating with him. Although he was prepared for it, I guess you can prepare somebody for something. There's so many things that change. Your demeanor changes, you just become a robot in front of this person, and the child is unable to understand why somebody who was so familiar with you before suddenly becomes a stranger and is acting so different to you. And they begin to doubt their choices, which was what happened to one of my friends. The child did really well at first, but because there was no reaction behind it, it was just, good, okay, next. And so the child crumbled and started to cry. As she told me what it was, she had never seen him cry like that. You could imagine the sort of frustration and fear and need for acceptance that's going on through this child's head. Like, why on earth are you doing this to me? When she's just doing what was told on the manual. So I don't know if it's being done like this everywhere. I'm really concerned. But I do hear that there are people who administer the WMV and does praise. So I guess like I don't have enough worldview on it, but I'm hoping people do apply it to children like you would treat children.
Is it relevant for me to ask what kind of special needs that child has?
I'd rather not disclose,
Okay.
I guess, because it's always private and confidential.
Yeah, definitely.
We never know who's gonna listen to this and like piece 2 and 2 together. But it really doesn't matter, because I think it would apply to even non-special needs kids.
I think it would apply to me, really.
I get
Carrying
it.
out tasks, and the person like across from you is just like, there's no
Like
feedback.
dead eyes.
Yeah.
Dead
Yeah.
fish
And you're
eyes.
like, oh no, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, I can imagine that. For me, a little bit more analytical. I know that has to happen, but this is me as an adult. Had I been a child below the age of 14, you know, the teenage angst, before that, just wanting to run around, be boisterous, be consistently moving. If I were to meet somebody that I know well, and them just completely shut off all emotional availabilities, I think I'll be like, oh, okay, this is, who are you?
Yeah.
And what have you done with my friend?
Yeah.
Okay, it'd be kind of weird.
So there are the pros and cons.
So far, I'm hearing cons and cons. Mostly.
I mean, the pros are when you actually use it for the law that it's actually meant to, which is people who actually need to know the scores so that they can either work on the facets that are lacking, or it helps the clinician indicate what needs to be used for their future interventions.
This is definitely something that's more used clinically. Definitely 100%.
Definitely.
For you who are listening and want to try this, go to a physician. Go to a psych and talk to them. Maybe they'll say, yeah, why not? Maybe they'll say, no, this doesn't apply to you. It's a vanity thing more than anything.
Oh, yeah. But I guess do it. You never know what you're going to find. Because a lot of times you think you're typical and then you find out you're not. And it will help explain certain things about your life. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be interesting. Now I'm looking forward to my answer.
Yeah,
To my,
mine too. Like
analysis.
I know 100%. I don't know how atypical I am. I might just be like a blimp into atypical, but mostly typical. I'm a basic bitch. How far into the atypical do I think? And I think that for me is very important as somebody who is just so vastly different from everybody else, being someone with disability and all. As a person, I'm constantly looking for things that separate me from everybody else by virtue of that being something that makes me closer to everybody else. Like that. It's a weird inclusion need thing because I'm only human and we're pack animals. If I can be useful to my tribe in any which way. Yeah, so finding out how atypical you are or how typical you are actually informs how you survive within said tribe. Because everybody has such specific needs to fulfill, right? Totally get it. If you want to do the test, do it. Go through a licensed physician. Thanks.
Yes, thanks. And make sure they're certified.
Certified.
Please.
This country is notorious for uncertified people who got a certification course.
Multiple certification
for 3
courses.
months, suddenly they're professionals. That's not how it works, guys. This takes years and years to balloon into somebody who can actually take data and read from that data something that you are. So remember that. Don't just go to somebody who can say, yeah, I can fix your problems. We're just going to sit on the couch and talk. It's never that easy coming from a psych perspective and somebody who knows a lot of psychs.
Okay, let's move on.
Moving on. We have tangented again, as I knew we would.
All right, just gonna briefly go through what was covered in the test. Within the test, we do look at the verbal IQ, we look at performance IQ, which explains by itself. So things that you can say and things that you can do by your hands.
Oh.
Yeah, do you guys not remember parts of that? Because there were parts of the test that were actually done by hand, where you have to assemble or you have to.
I do remember that, but it didn't occur to me that was a performance thing. I just thought it was just.
I sort of keyed into that because a lot of things that people in rehab do, and I mean, not drugs rehab, but more like rehabilitation for muscles and stuff. So occupational therapy and physical therapy. It's more your dexterity with your hands, your fine motor neuron skills, the ability to replicate pictures or symbols. Yeah. Those are very, very important things that the common person who doesn't have problems take for granted. And I totally understand why it would be in the test.
Yeah, which a breakdown from there. So under verbal IQ, we have verbal comprehension and working memory. Verbal comprehension will cover stuff like your vocab, being able to draw similarities between two seemingly unrelated items, some information, basic information, general world information, and some comprehension, like basic reading a sentence and understanding what you derive from it. Under verbal IQ, there's working memory, which we covered arithmetics, ability to remember some numbers that are being said to you, and being able to shuffle around these numbers according to order.
That was the worst.
That was really difficult. Yeah. I'm glad we both found that difficult.
Well, to be fair, there's actually a theory on that. It's the 3 to 5 theory. People can bash on me if I've gotten this wrong. But essentially, our brain tends to remember in 3s and maximum to 5. So after the 5th digit number, usually people have trouble remembering things. And actually 3s are actually the easiest to remember. And that's why a lot of things are chunked. Like people's numbers.
Like phone numbers. I remember watching a video about numbers in French. Apparently the French people don't think numbers the same as Anglo-speaking people do. Just because their use of numbers are completely different. Like, for example, if we talk about phone numbers, we do it in blocks of 3, 3, 4. Right? French people do weird stuff. I'll link it in the description for you to check it out. But essentially, depending on the language that you use, how you relate to numbers and how you memorize will be completely different. It blew my mind. But moving on.
Performance IQ would have perceptual organization, and this is stuff that you guys have to do with hands, but also how our brain thinks around certain concepts, abstracts. We have what's missing from a picture, how to replicate a certain design that you have seen by your hands. So it's stuff like that. We have processing speed as well, and processing speed kind of had something called digit symbol coding, which was how fast you could replicate certain information. Oh my god, my brain.
I feel like my processing speed was very slow.
Well, you did have a very long day.
That is true.
So that's actually something that actually we have to write in our behavior observation. So if your processing speed was slow, it's probably because you haven't had you had only
5 hours of sleep.
Yeah, 5 hours of sleep. So you're really tired that day. So your brain's already at max capacity.
Yep.
You have to look through some symbols and see how fast you can okay, if 1, 2, 3 has symbols, you kind of have to write it back. That's actually your brain constantly trying to memorize info, spit it back out. And the process is very quick. We actually don't think about it, but for people who are struggling with it, the tendency to look at something, memorize it, replicate it, is actually a very hard process to do. Not everyone finds that easy. And there's also spotting the differences, putting it in simple words, like what's missing from this picture in a way, or is this correct or is this not correct? Is it there or not? Ability to pay attention to detail. These are things that our brain does in a split second. but we don't realize we're doing it. Sometimes when people walk into a room and like something's wrong here, our brain has taken certain cues that something is wrong within a room, but it takes some time for the rest of the brain to kind of catch up to be like, that person's holding a knife.
That's the whole gut feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ideology. Is it an ideology? That's the whole gut feeling
Theory?
theory.
In a way,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you walk in, your brain has already signaled like, oh, this is wrong, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's why it's wrong.
Yeah, or like red flags, and it
Yeah.
exists in any facet of your life,
Yeah.
like the uh-oh feeling, but you're not sure why you have an uh-oh. Your brain already has pieced together information that something is wrong about this, but the rest of your monkey brain is just like, let's go with it. So yeah, essentially that is the whole IQ test and what it covers.
It was really interesting. I like the pictures because I grew up doing a lot of word find puzzles, a lot of Where's Wally, this picture versus this picture. Now you have to circle 10 things that's different about it.
And you only find 9.
And you only find 9. I want to be that one person who designs a puzzle board game. You know those jigsaw puzzles, but deliberately omit one.
That's evil.
Just omit one piece.
We don't do this during our IQ tests at all. We do not do this to mess with people's psyche. That's just purely Shaw.
So the pictures you're talking about, Shah, is the ones where Jane gave us these drawings, and then she said, "What's wrong with these drawings, or what's missing with these drawings?" That's what you're talking about. I found those pretty hard, actually.
I love those.
So
yes.
yeah, I think for me as well, because I was like, I don't know if this is something that's wrong or that's it's like an imperfection and that exists anyway.
Yeah, and then you might find yourself trying to look for imperfections and trying to justify why certain things look that way, and then think, oh, this is wrong. But you don't really see anything wrong with the picture. You're just trying to justify and find things to make wrong, which is a really big problem.
Yeah.
Because you see that in relationships and real life. If you want to find something wrong with something, you will find it because you're already justifying it.
But it was actually quite fun to see how different people react to different information, because for finding what was wrong with the picture, because we had to administer this among our students before this, and there was one of them where all of us were just staring at it and just we couldn't find what was wrong. And actually there were 2 or 3 pictures like this, and I noticed that you guys were just like zoomed in straight, and I'm just like, how did you guys see that? Like, I didn't see. Oh my god, no.
This is wrong!
You guys zoomed straight into it. I don't know how you guys found it because it was such a minute detail, and you just kind of pat yourself on the back and just like, it's okay, I don't really pay attention to detail anyway.
I'm patting myself on the back right now.
Because I do understand that during the test, some of them have time limit. The clinician is just like, okay, next one. I know because they had the test administered on me as well, and I was just like, no, I can prove myself. I know what's wrong.
I understand that feeling because I did this multiple times during the test, and you had to remind me, no, let it go, let it go. And I'm like, I can't let it go. I can't. The time's up. I have to do this. I have to do it. Okay, next one. And I'm still sitting on them right now. After what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's been about 2 weeks.
Yeah, after 2 weeks, I'm still sitting on the fact that I missed out those questions.
You're a completionist.
Not really, because in video games, I never want to chase stuff. When I finish the game, I finish the story. If it's good, I'll play it again. But if it's bad, bye. I'm not really a completionist. It's more like, I think it's an ego thing.
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure it's an ego thing because I know I can do this had I written it down. This is a memory issue. Why am I unable to do this? It's so easy. It's so easy. You can do this. We were playing Waterdeep yesterday. Lords of Waterdeep, really good game. One of it is calculating points. And at that point in the middle of the night, I am physically and mentally lazy. It's like, okay, what's your score? 79 plus 18 plus 2. And I'll be like, I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. Okay. But that usually takes too long. So I have all my other friends who are like, something, numbers. And I'm like, yay! I did not have to input. I'm lazy. So it's more of an ego thing when I know I can answer the question.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. I definitely do get that.
You know it. Why can't you answer? It's like having a word at the tip of your tongue.
Yeah.
And then you don't sleep and then it appears, and then you text your friend, and you're like, it's this word. Your friend's like, go to sleep.
What would you say was your favorite component of the test?
I can say which was not my favorite.
Okay, which one was your least favorite?
Math.
Knew it.
Math.
Not even once. Well, I answered some stuff, like the basic math questions, like the simple stuff you would do in a grocery store. Like if I had 10 apples and I wanted 2 watermelons, how many apples do I have to put back? I don't know.
What?
It's some stupid abstract shit like that. It's just basic calculations. You can get it on the get-go because you already work in series of 20s or 10s. It's easy for you to just visualize that. But when it comes to multiple numbers, colors, remembering sequences, far too many words. Far too many words. Like there are 4 sentences in this paragraph, 2 of which are not relevant. I hate you. I can't even try to justify how dumb I felt.
That's funny because I thought the math was really easy.
You made it look easy. You were just like, bam, bam, bam. I'm just like, it's hard for me to keep a straight face when I'm just like, damn, this girl's good. And I'm just like, slip up. But you don't slip up. I'm just like, wow. I'm not impressed. I'm not thoroughly impressed.
We actually got to the end of the math questions, and you were about to start a new component, and I was like, wait, we're done with math.
Meanwhile, me, is it over yet? Is it over?
Because I do remember at one point of the question, where the question is extra long, which is the one Shah's talking about, where like the first 2 sentences have no relevance whatsoever. And the question actually goes on long enough because you have to take in information, remember it, and kind of calculate from there. And I will smile every time I'm about to administer that specific question because like it hits you and the whiplash will leave your neck sore because you aren't prepared, because the questions before that are just like, do this and this. Oh, do this and this. Oh, and the next one just like, meanwhile, Johnny has 5 things and Bob has 35 and Niall has this one and that one. Tell me what's the color of your shirt.
Yeah, it's essentially the stupid bus driver one. There's a bus going down the street. And the first stop, 2 people get it.
You're the bus driver.
Yeah,
you're
and then
driving the
it's
bus.
like, you're driving the bus. What's the name of the bus driver? And you're like, what? Bob? And then the other person's like, is your name Bob? And I'm like, I hate you.
It's very interesting how, I haven't read the history of how they came up with each component, because each component and each question is kind of put together to look at certain facets of how your brain would look at certain information. That question itself, you kind of know that it's looking at comprehension, it's looking at mathematical ability, it's looking at your working memory at the same time. Yeah, it's looking at so many facets at the same time. So how they created the questions do affect the score in a certain way. Like it tells you a lot when the person answers it. So that's why we take in like how you guys are freaking out as well.
All throughout, thank you.
There was one with the earlier math questions where it was talking about the colored paper clips.
Stupid paper clip.
Such a good question. I love it.
It's like I mixed up all the numbers and one of the colors.
And Jane had to repeat that question for me.
Yeah.
And I was asking her like, wait, how many yellow?
Yeah, the thing is, she repeated it. She said it once, and then repeated it, and then I asked her again. She's like, I'm not repeating it anymore.
Because I'm not allowed to.
Yeah,
according to the manual, I'm not allowed to repeat it. So you only have one shot. But the thing is, I can see it on like person's face. Like the first time the question is being read, by the 3rd sentence I'm going through it, the person has kind of lost hope.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know what, if I pay attention halfway now, I'm not gonna get it. I'm just gonna ask them to repeat, and then like you ask repeat and I repeat it, and like you get lost halfway, and then you say repeat again, and I'm just like no.
Yep.
And you see the panic go through the person's eyes, like, wait, no, I was supposed to pay attention the first 2 times. No. I love
this
that reaction.
struggle is real. It's a ratio question as well,
Yeah, I'm
which
not using.
shits me. I can't.
Well, to be fair, it's really easy if your attention is full blown. But arithmetic is already about the 10th or 9th thing that you're going through. So you've already been through a few other things. So by the time you reach math, you're already like, you're taking a deep breath, like, okay, I can do this.
I think maybe as well, like, I'm very comfortable with math, so I wasn't panicking at any point doing the math.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas maybe you're kind of like,
I was coasting through anything with pictures, symbols, and colors and shapes. I'm like, yee! This is fun!
I know.
No!
like the symbols, the one where you kind of had to tell what the next picture was. Like you were coasting through that, and you were just like this one, and I'm like, oh, she's getting this all right, and you powered through that one. I'm just like, really tells a lot.
Meanwhile, I was sitting there with like my head between my hands.
Oh yeah, like it was legit like so much focus, and I'm like, don't break a blood vessel there.
Suddenly a vein.
And I'm like, okay, there's a bit of color here. This is here.
Like you can really see people's thought process, and actually it's something I really appreciate, but like people don't see that because they're going through it. I'm just like, you're doing good, baby, you're doing good, but I can't say that.
It's quite terrifying because you don't get that feedback, or rather you're not supposed to get that feedback, but we did anyway. It's supposed to be a robot testing you, now it's just Jane.
So that was the worst part. Do you guys actually have a favorite part was the block club?
The blocks, I actually failed the last block one.
I did. I managed the last block one. I
noticed
failed
the word was fail. Fail. It's not about failing, guys.
No, I really did. I was like, how in the world?
I think
Because I couldn't see the grid. When I can't see the grid, it's a little bit more dubious for me to finish.
That was the point, though.
Yeah. So I think at that point I was already like, nah.
I think there were some of the other maybe picture ones where I was like, oh, ran out of time. Or you were like, oh, do this as fast as possible. And I didn't even register as fast as possible. I was sitting there like,
take my time.
This goes here.
Time's up.
There was one where you had to rearrange some pictures.
Yeah.
It wasn't the storytelling one, the meme post one. It was more like there was a house and you had to figure out.
Oh, you have to assemble the picture together from nothing.
I could not do that.
I got it a few seconds after the timer went off because I had to look at it in entirety. And then I was like, oh yeah, if I just move this down here. But timer went off and I was just like, nah, you know what? No, I'm not your friend anymore. I, an interior designer, do not do facades.
I know, bitch.
I merely do interiors. This is not my forte.
But the most burning part is like when I was doing errands, like she got it right and she took it apart.
No!
Oh, what?
And I'm just like, no. But I can't let that show on my face, and so I just kind of have to look down at my paper and like pretend I'm writing something like, no, you got it right. And because each segment you get right, there's extra bonus points that you can gain. So the minute you tear it apart, you kind of lose points. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, there was one point where I looked at it and I was like, this is the best I can do, but it doesn't look complete. And then so that's when I started trying to rearrange things again. Like just completely like, okay, no, I know these things go together, so let me try and rearrange. And it just couldn't. And it could not.
Well, to be honest, that was actually one of the harder ones because it doesn't seem to fit. If you look at it from a glance, like nothing fits anywhere.
Without talking about the shape overall, is it the pink one?
It's the exterior design.
Exterior design. That one so much.
The pink one I could not do. The pink one I could put little bits together.
Not gonna say specifically what it looks like.
The one I thought that was a cat. That was obviously not a cat.
Oh no. Like I swear, like the listeners are just gonna go home and just be like, when they actually do the test, the pink one.
It's not a cat, guys.
Like guys, don't freak out when you guys are doing the test. Just because you guys hear this, I swear it's gonna make an effect. You guys are gonna see the pink one and freak out and affect your test. Just
don't freak out because I managed to finish it.
Shaw got it. It's just that I am a numbers person and
I didn't get the math bit, so there's hope. IQ test and you hope.
Putting shapes together is not what I do. That was hard. That was really hard for me.
A plus side is it was actually very nice to see how you guys knew your strengths and weaknesses before we actually started. You guys already kind of gave me an idea like what you guys were good at, what you guys weren't good at, and it showed. It really did show in the numbers to the point where I was just looking at the numbers. This looks like Aaron's score. Hey, this looks like Shaw's score. So it really did show. So it's good that you guys know what you guys are good at, what you guys can improve on, so it can be like utilized 100% power.
Yes, because like I said, in your tribe, you do what you do. Everybody else can supplement on what you cannot do. So don't stress out if you can't do something. That's what other people are for.
Yes.
I think what would be interesting would be looking at what Sha and I were kind of both on the same level at. So we both found the memory bits really hard.
Okay, the thing is, I think I did okay, but I have a feeling I didn't do okay. Because you coast through, you're like, I probably forgot a letter. Never mind.
So what happened? What happened was Jane would give us increasingly long sequences of numbers. So there were two different ones, right?
Yeah, there are two different ones.
One was increasingly long list of numbers, and then we just had to repeat the numbers back in order. Or not
so
in
the
order?
first one was repeat the numbers as it was spoken, and then the second one was repeat the numbers backwards, and then it was a series of letters and numbers, and you had to arrange them. But I can't remember if it was numbers first or letters first.
Numbers first.
Numbers.
Yeah,
numbers
because I was like, okay, these are the numbers.
So
What were the letters?
like if they say it was 1 B C 2 3 A, you had to go 1 2 3 A B C, and that was, oh my god, that was so hard.
That was horrible.
I went home singing A B C D E F G. It's like a psycho trip in your mind. You're like A B C D E F G. Oh my god.
So can I ask how you did that in your mind? Like.
But the thing is, I don't think I got them right.
Yeah, but what was the process?
It doesn't matter. See, the thing is, there's only a limit to how much people can get it right.
Yeah, I think if it was 5 numbers, I was still okay. Anything more than that, I started stumbling. But I would cue into the numbers first, continuously repeating the sequence. Like if there was a sequence, I'll be like, okay, I'll key into the numbers first. I'll repeat the sequence and then repeat all the numbers. Repeat the sequence again. And then do the numbers in order, and then repeat the sequence again, do the numbers in order, and then take stock of all the letters, and then do the sequence of letters, and then repeat the whole thing.
So that's essentially how people would do it, is an elimination process. But were you seeing the numbers and letters in your head, or
I do that.
Visualize it?
Yeah, I have to look at it, otherwise I'll forget it. It'll be like immediately, nope.
So, because the numbers and letters are kind of intertwined, what happens to the numbers or letters that you have said? Does it disappear, or does it cross, or?
It's very funny because it looks like, you know, in cinema where things take a step back from the primary object of the camera. That's what I feel like.
Wow.
That's what happens in my head. So you have a row, and then the primary offenders please step up, and then you have the numbers coming up first. And then the letters are still there, but they're hazy, but you still repeat them. It's really interesting. And then as time progresses, they just get blur and blur, and then they disappear. And you're like, damn. There's definitely a time limit there.
Knowing that's how you do it, Erin, how do you?
I think I feel it was quite similar. I would try and remember the sound in my head, like. So this is what Jane said. It was this number. Like just repeating those sounds in my head. And as I'm going through it, I'm picking out the numbers. It feels to me like I'm just putting the numbers aside. I picked out the numbers, I put them aside in this bit of my brain, and then I rearrange those, and I say those to you first, so I can like get that out of my head, and then I go back for the letters, and then by that time the letters are gone. So.
Like short sequences, okay, up to 5. Maybe 6 is pushing it, and then it goes beyond that. And you're like, where is this going? No.
And you start giving me kitchen utensils.
There was one where it just went too far. But that wasn't the numbers and letter ones. That was
it wasn't.
That was
backwards.
Yeah, and it was like 3, 4, 2, purple dinosaur, wall, ceiling, paper. Curtain.
And see, I have to write down these responses, so I'm just like, why?
But then there's also some points, I think, during the number and letters ones where like I would make an effort with the numbers. I'd be like, oh, I'll make a half-ass effort for the letters. But then I'd be like, oh, I think Jane said this letter, but did she say in the last sequence or did she say in this sequence? And then I would just be like, oh, I'll just spit that out.
I didn't have much.
Okay, now I get it.
That because I thought the test doesn't rely on me recollecting previous questions, especially the sequence of numbers. So it's like, go in, throw out of brain.
So you can do that.
Yeah. I can flush information that is not important until you bring it up. Then I hate myself.
That's very interesting because I did see that. I did see that you were bringing up stuff from the previous one, and I had to keep poker face because, like, I didn't say that number, but I can't repeat it anymore. It's actually interesting because Aaron's thought process is similar to mine because when that test was administered on me, I also did the whole chunk of numbers. The alphabets were like, gonna try and make up them.
A, B, C, D,
Yes, and it's that point you wish you didn't worship that song. You could just like, what comes after G? And you're like, no.
G, H comes after G.
Like the best test for that, I mean, this is aside from intelligence testing, would be say the alphabets backwards. I worship people who can do it. I'm just like,
It's
God level.
Cannot.
so long for me.
It's that. Why I don't want to do it.
Z, Y, X, W, V. I'm not even gonna.
You're gonna think about this. until you
I'm
can
very much thinking the minute you brought it up,
You're
I was
welcome.
like A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Because some people can do that. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Can we talk about some general knowledge questions?
Oh yeah.
And there was also some kind of like, you're asking questions like, why does this happen? You're asking questions to do with society, possibly? Like, why?
That was essentially to see one's ability to use the facts that they know and make a solid argument in a way. You don't have to do a full-on argument, but understanding the world around you and making up a reasonable explanation for it in a
I
way.
don't have a recollection of this.
Because we're wording it very differently from how it sounded.
How did Sha do?
Wow!
Very wordy, I expect.
I expect
Oh, yes,
the same.
yes.
I expect the same.
It's like blah 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 blah. What was the point? Hee 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 hee.
Whereas I was just like social capital.
Which is really funny because when you have to take like marks, because it's not just simple as yes they can answer it, no they can't answer it. There is a scale of 0, 1, and 2. So 2 being that the person has given a very they've gotten the idea and concept of the question. 1 being they kind of tap the surface of it, and 0 being they're totally off point. Hey, no, I like
It's the other way around.
No. I mean,
Okay.
like 0 is not totally off point, but it's such a basic answer. Like if I asked you a question on what is the use of a whiteboard and you just say for classroom, like that would be a 0 answer. Like they've done tests and tests and tests on this one to decide what. Oh, that's a different criticism altogether. But what is considered as a low level answer and what deserves a 1 point and a 2 point. So sometimes when it was during Shah's, I would just be like, okay, we got 2 points, and it's still going. I'm just like,
10 minutes later.
because of how you need to be socially competent, you have to listen. Because sometimes you do hear certain things that may come out, and we can't just be like, okay, I got the point, I'm going to stop listening now. You have to keep listening because you never know if there are any indications from what the person says that reveals how they think about certain things. We also need to have the skills to kind of like, okay, moving on.
Discern and go.
Yes.
We're done.
If we get like clients like Aaron, it's super easy because it's just like bam, bam, bam. Like, yes, okay, that, yep, and the chances are really low to get somebody as compliant as direct.
STEM people.
STEM
people.
Oh, I should do a study on that.
I don't have time for this. Faster.
But at the same time, there are downsides to that because if you don't elaborate, it sometimes also can get you lower scores. But it is inclusive enough. Sometimes when you answer a question, in the manual itself, it will tell you to probe for more answers. Like, it will say, okay, this one you're allowed to be like, explain more. Which sounds very condescending. I'm actually surprised. Some of my friends didn't realize I was doing that. They thought it was just part of me trying to understand their statement. So there's that. So like it was actually quite interesting that when I asked like, okay, can you explain more? Then you guys would just naturally explain more.
Yeah.
And now that you guys have heard all of this, you guys are gonna wonder when your clinician asks you, so can you tell me more? You guys are gonna freak out.
I'm a natural blabbermouth. So if you ask that question, prepare
to be
for
deluged.
a lot of time being wasted.
I'm just gonna jump in here and say, like, when I was doing my undergraduate degree, all our exams, the answers were very much like logic answers or numbers or whatever. So it was just, okay, this is the right answer. You write it down. You get it right, then you get your points.
What was on 2020?
But then I did my master's and in economics, and that's a social science, and you have to really elaborate on your answers. And the first exams that I did really badly in, because they would ask a question and I would answer the question. They wanted me to show off my knowledge, so I had to learn how to be like, oh, okay, so they're asking this question, what they really want to know is like, what do I know all like in this entire topic? But to like, answer this question in a way that shows that I know about all this other knowledge around this topic.
So they wanted you to ramble.
Yeah, essentially.
Basically, you have to break up from the Asian molds. Do not tell me what's in the textbook, tell me what is in your brain.
But I also feel like the questions could have been appropriately worded as well. Like, rather than just saying, what is the answer to this, they could have been like,
explain more
about, or detail more about, or how is this, or that kind of thing. And anyway, that is a old thing that I'm way over now, so moving on.
The ego bruise is still there.
The wound is still fresh.
I remind you, we're all Asian, so the ego is huge.
Yeah.
We can beat you at everything.
General knowledge, you found that fun.
Yeah, I forgot who this one lady was. She was very great.
And I think this maybe ties into what we'll be talking about next, which is criticisms about the IQ test. But I found that a lot of the general knowledge was very geographical, which I felt was like most people living outside of maybe
the
like
US.
a Western bubble, maybe not just the US.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
the
say
Western bubble, correct.
Yeah, a Western bubble would know the answers to these questions, and I found it was very easy. But then I thought, like, I've watched these late night chat shows where they go out to the public on the street and they go show them a map of the world and they go, where's Afghanistan, and they point at Australia.
My geography's not strong, so I can't bash on them because my geography's horrible.
It's like my geography is enough, I feel, but when it comes to very Western-centric locations, I'm like, I don't know.
Show me where Minnesota is.
Minnesota. I don't know where Minnesota is. You tell me where Kedah is. Oh, it's the same difference.
Agreed. Like, we actually have less states.
Minnesota, Alosata. I'm just saying.
I found out today there's a St. Petersburg in Florida.
Why?
Yeah.
There's this small, non-American country state in every American state. Like New England. Is there a new Newcastle?
Well, to be fair, New England was actually because of the whole moving over.
Yeah, so they pretty much brought their little towns to America.
And essentially colonized.
Yeah, not...
You might want to cut that out.
Yeah.
Just giving you a little glimpse of how we in Malaysia view you Americans.
Guys, pretty much.
I wouldn't say we are a good generalized lot because to be fair,
we have our hang-ups, but so do you. I'm still really sorry that you guys don't know where Malaysia is. I'm so disappointed in you.
To be fair, they kind of know where we are now that we're like using planes and shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're doing an entirely different episode on Malaysia.
Yeah,
soon.
definitely.
If
you can join if you want.
us. Anyway, back to the IQ test.
Yes.
General knowledge.
Yeah, general knowledge. My criticism, that would be my criticism. But again, maybe that's a kind of general understanding of the world, right? Like,
yeah.
It's not just that. I feel my criticism would be...
at all.
Yeah, no, it's really
so
not
offended.
General in a globalized sense. The other thing is, aside from general knowledge, which is Western-centric, there's also the vocabulary aspect of it that is intranslatable to any other language.
We agree.
So if you don't use the English language, you're going to have a lower IQ.
Yeah.
It's not repeatable in other countries in their own language.
I actually don't know if the Y's has been translated to any other language.
If you know anybody who knows that answer, you can tweet me at __Shah ____.
I don't know if she's making this up.
So that's, for those of you who don't have a working memory, that would be me. That's 2 underscores, SHA, 3 underscores.
Right, so SHA, Sudan, Hyderabad,
Armenia.
Armenia.
Now repeat that back in alphabetical order, please.
Oh no. AHS.
American Horror Story. But yeah, because in Malaysia itself, we're still using the Y's as it is.
Oh.
And my classmates have been raging about it, and I mean raging not in the raving version of raving, but we're raging, like extra G. Because when we first applied it, we were so excited. We were just like, yay! And as we're applying this, you can kind of see everyone's face kind of like gradually grow into a face of confusion and disappointment, because we're realizing that this doesn't apply to Malaysian like context at all. And I just find it so unfair. And I understand why Malaysia hasn't had their own version, because we're a multilingual country.
I like you from the Western world try to elaborate what la means. Tweet me. And if it's good, I'll probably quote you.
Maybe we'll give an answer in the Malaysian episode.
Yeah, we'll definitely give an answer in the Malaysian episode and variables of.
Sure.
Because multilingual countries speak more than 2 languages oftentimes.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
true.
we mix everything up.
Yeah.
It's like a blender.
There were some words where my lecturer actually asked for our help. He was hoping that we could come up with a Mandarin version applied to the Chinese population. And so me and a few of my classmates, so we were just throwing Chinese words out. Some of the words translate to very direct meaning on its own.
Oh.
I don't even know how to pull out the examples here, but essentially it translates directly to the meaning.
Yeah.
And we're just like, we can't make it more complicated. It's Chinese language was just as simple. I don't know why English is like that. So like a lot of things is really hard to translate into Bahasa to Mandarin, and then there are the dialects, and you're like, no, we can't do this. Like, yeah, it's actually really hard. Some words have no equivalent. Yeah.
And you're also now putting more importance on certain dialects, saying other dialects is less important and less needed in society nowadays, which I disagree, because every dialect is important culturally.
Mm-hmm.
And certain dialects mean you understand certain values very, very differently.
The knowledge segment was also another thing.
A lot of Nobel Prize winners,
But like they're big names from the Western world. Try and tell me who is. I can't say Najib. You guys would definitely know who he is.
Yep.
Who we got? P. Ramlee. Tell me who the fuck P. Ramlee is, and you guys can like. Yeah.
I think even possibly some Western listeners also might not even know who Najib is. If you don't, look him up. It's a really fun story. Yeah, so Jane, you touched on this a little bit before about how Shaw and I were quite different in how we responded to the questions.
Yeah.
I think possibly an interesting question would be, without knowing us, if you had no idea who we were or what we did, would you have been able to kind of guess the areas that we work in based on how we responded?
So the funny thing is, I probably would have done the whole, that makes sense. Like I said before, I could guess your scores without even knowing whose it was, because I kind of put, the names aren't there on every page, so when you're doing scores, they're just numbers. So I don't even have to really know you guys to kind of guess. Which is, on a side note, you guys actually are in the fields that you guys need to be in, so that's the fun part.
So when your parent tells you you need to do accounting, but you feel like you need to do art, just do art.
However, if like there's a lot of controversy with that one. Like, just because your scores tell you you're not going to be good at something doesn't mean you can't learn from it. We talked to our lecturers, and they said that you can gain better IQ scores because it's all about practice.
Yeah.
So to be fair, it's just about, some people have, I'm going to use air quotes, which you can't see, but natural air quote talent. So there are people who have affinities to certain things and some people who have affinities for different things. But it's perfectly fine if you want to go into something that you are not as strong in. Do whatever makes you happy, man.
Exactly.
But do note that it will come with its own set of struggles.
I feel like in general IQ is very much learned. You innately have strengths, but you can also build strengths in many different ways.
Definitely.
It's just like somebody who doesn't understand emotions can learn to deal with emotions and show certain emotional responses.
Intelligence.
EQ is another interesting thing we can talk about, because I have no idea what EQ is. What it entails. Is there even a test?
But that's the thing, though, because things can be learned, and this was something we were talking about during lunch as well. As a clinical psychologist, you're going to be thinking like, oh, I'm super passionate. I am passionate. Compassionate, that's the word. Compassionate, or I should have a lot of empathy. And I would look people dead in the eye and say, I don't give a shit. But the thing is, you don't have to have that to care for people.
Mhm.
There are different states you can step into. When I am doing my job, I naturally just tune out who I naturally am and do the job I have to do because I want people to have better lives, or I want to help people. And so from there, it's not, I wouldn't say it's not wrong, but like you're able to channel the person you need to be at the moment, even if during your natural state you don't have those qualities. And it's really hard to tell people that just because you know about something you're not allowed to make jokes about it. Just because I'm working with people with special needs, people with mental illnesses, I'm not supposed to make jokes about it anymore. Like, no, I think you're allowed to be a person as long as you understand the limits of what you're saying, what you're doing, and you don't intend any harm by it.
There's a time and place for everything.
Yes.
Is what I always say. So yeah. Definitely situational. IQ is definitely situational because you can be a complete knob with your friends, but absolutely professional in a workplace environment.
I agree.
I think we can literally sit here for another 3 or 4 hours talking about this.
We could.
But any insights? Tweet. Any comments? Tweet. Any changes you want to make? Tweet us. Any problems that you find with what we said.
Any one of
Tweet
you
us.
have done an IQ test?
Any one of you
Mm.
who have done an IQ test.
And
that
we're
is
not talking
wonderful.
about the internet one, guys.
Yeah, internet one will say you are a special individual.
Can I just jump in very quickly
Yep.
and say that I did this, it was about 10 years ago that the BBC did this nationwide IQ test. So they had Anne Robinson go on TV and administer these questions.
Oh, wow.
So I sat there with my sister and we had like our pen and paper and we like took down our answers. And my final IQ test at the end of that was 108. And I have to say that was disappointing for me.
Asian. That's an Asian reaction.
Because 108, I think, it's average, right? So between 90 and 110 is average.
Man, that's
And
good.
I have to say, in a way, shaped me a little
Ooh.
bit because I've always been like, oh, okay, actually, my intelligence is average. I'm not that smart. I'm not brilliant. I'm just average. So it might have actually meant that I went, okay, well, I just work a little bit harder than other people then. Because I think I went to some pretty like high level schools to think to myself, oh, my IQ is average, but I'm here. I just need to work extra hard. So I think that maybe Jane probably has some words on that as well, like how like maybe like
IQ scores don't mean anything.
yeah, this idea that this number has actually affected me in my life.
I really don't think it's fair for people because when we say average, we're not saying that, oh, you're mediocre, that's all you're going to amount to. When we're saying you're average, that means you're normal, you're functioning like a normal person. Your brain is working at perfect capacity. That's what we mean. We don't mean, oh, you're just basic stupid. No, that is not what we mean.
I love that. You're just basic stupid.
No, it's just like there's only so much the brain is able to take. The strive to be more than average is really a harmful one because people are constantly pushing other people to be like, hey, be better, but there's a limit to how much your brain can actually take. And when we put you under the average, that just means you are fine, you are great, you're at optimal level.
You're so optimal, you're just 2 points from too optimal.
Like, do not strive for profound. So what if you get profound? There are people who reach profound, and I'll catch you there. There are a lot of people within the special needs community that get profound. And it doesn't reflect anything because there are social skills, there are different kinds of intelligences, and I don't think intelligence test is a definitive comprehension of who a person is. A score just means that your brain is working properly.
We're gonna close the session about IQ, and I would like to thank everybody for listening to our second episode. We'll see you in 3 weeks because I think the schedule is done now that there's gonna be an episode every 3 weeks because we each have our own lives and we do have to schedule
Lives?
special.
What was that?
I have a life.
Student no life.
Obviously, Erin doesn't, but okay, let's move on.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, support our podcast wherever you are.